Good morning. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to another one of our talks. Today we're going to have a very interesting topic who's going to be brought to us by Ana Moreno. The topic is exploring the relationship between spirituality, spiritism, and mental health. Another very interesting and very applicable topic. And hi, Anna. How are you? Thanks for being with us. Anna, before we start, I'd like just to present some reminders. So we now have a podcast-like series, Psychology and Spirituality, A Bridge to a Better Life, and it's based on the works by Joanna De Angelis. Every new episodes are offered every Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So basically, those weekly talks, they are based again on the works of Joanna De Angelis, and they offer a safe space for us to confront, compare, correlate, and expand spirituality concepts from a psychology, bringing insights, actionable tips, and real-world advice to help us lead a better life. So make sure you subscribe to receive notifications in the USSF YouTube channel. And so also we're just around the corner for the 17th Spiritist Symposium. It's going to be on September 30th, this time in Portland, Oregon. And I can tell you everything, all the great things about that beautiful state. So you have a chance to go visit Oregon and also take part in a very interesting event. So the symposium will focus on the topic spiritual path to mental balance. Full day program, talks, panels, keyway sessions, a youth panel, kids and youth activities. So make sure you save the date. And make sure also that you register early for the event. There are some, understand there are some discounts, early bird discounts for those who register sooner for the event. Also, if you want to assist, there is a QR code on the screen. So if you want to assist USSF, the United States Spiritist Federation, to keep producing great events, also great talks like this, offering great talks and translating important books. So make sure that you help by scanning the QR code. Anna, now back to you. So it's good to have you here with us today, and with everybody else who is watching. A very warm welcome again. And we're like very eager to hear about the relationship between spirituality and our mental health. I'd like to talk a little bit about you. So you're being very busy. You are the co-founder and the president of the Chico Xavier Learning Center in Oregon. You do come from a long line of spiritists in Brazil, and you've started studying mediumship as a teenager in São Paulo. So while staying in Brazil, you were an active member of FESP, which is the Federação Espírita do Estado de São Paulo. So it's the Spiritist Federation of São Paulo. And you were teaching classes and participating in multiple mediumship groups. You host a weekly virtual and in-person group studies on Allan Kardec, mediumship, and André Luiz's books, and with Brazilian and American and attendees from the US. So also academically, you hold a master's degree in business administration and marketing, also with a graduate certificate in electroengineering, nutrition, therapy, and yoga. That's quite an interesting combination there. Yeah, so tell us more about the relationships between spirituality, spiritism, and mental health. Everybody is eager to learn more about that very important topic.
So good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Glaucio. It's a pleasure to be here again. When I was thinking about this topic, I mean, when the USSF invited me to talk, I guess I got inspired by our symposium coming soon, as you said, September the 30th, that is about mental health, which is one of the most talked topics in our everyday lives. For everyone who has kids, like myself, teenagers, we have seen so much in terms of suffering and trauma. This generation will be very different than ours, being able to tell their grandkids that they experienced a pandemic and they had to basically go through Zoom and be away from friends and have to be locked in with their families for almost 3 years. So that has had a lot of impact in each one of us. I would say society is a different has a different structure today as it had before. So for the topic today, I kind of put a brief agenda, and I plan to talk for about 40 minutes. First, it's about mental health. Why is it important? And then what is really mental health and cultivating mental health? Spirituality, spiritism, and mental health, how they connect. And then how can spiritism basically help us live better and be happier? So what we've been seeing today, and I got this quote from Pearl Buck, many people lose their small joys in the hope for big happiness. And we can see that happening in our lives many times. We're always kind of looking for the big enchilada and forgetting the small joys that we all have every day. It can be as simple as breathing. And just to remind us how important it is to be able to breathe, just go back to COVID, and that will be a good flag for our gratitude. We are always looking for the big things in our lives. It's either like the next big thing, such as a new job or a bigger house or a marriage or a son or a daughter. And we forget to be grateful for every little small things that it surrounds us every day, such as the sunshine or a friend saying hello or the hot water in our showers. And that kind of can put us in a mental state of suffering, of unhappiness, of loss. There is a medical doctor which is specialized in trauma. You may have heard about it. That's Dr. Gabor Mate. And he's a Canadian doctor. And in his studies about trauma, he came into a very simple conclusion that the research literature has identified 3 factors for universally lead to stress: uncertainty, the lack of information, and loss of control. And if we go back to this past few years of our lives, we faced a lot of uncertainty. We faced a lot of uncertainty about ourselves, about our families, about our people that we love. Some of us live in foreign countries, away from their family members, from the people that are most important for us, like our parents or grandparents, or maybe our kids. We had to relearn how to live in a world that being in contact with other people could be dangerous, that saying hello could be dangerous, that we would be walking on the streets not knowing if that would be a good idea. The lack of information that we have dealt with in terms of not knowing what would be the next phase, it would be easier or harder. How could we protect ourselves? What was true or what was not? This information that today that we know because of AI, if each one of us look up for different things, we're probably gonna have different answers from Google, because Google will probably give us what we expect to hear. And that can create a lot of confusion, a lot of turmoil, a lot of uncertainty, and of course, loss of control. When we are not able to deal with our own safety, we feel that we are impotent. And that's when we can easily get into the trap of feeling imbalanced and sad or depressed. So, why is mental health important for overall health? So, Glaucia, you asked me, so how did you came from a very different background. So going from being an engineering that could not be more pragmatic and binary, right, in terms of right and wrong, to nutrition therapy and yoga. And what I've learned, and each one of us have our own experiences in life, is that I was diagnosed a while back with a very serious autoimmune disease, a debilitating with no cure. And it didn't matter that I had all the wonderful academic titles, that I graduated from the top schools in the whole planet. That couldn't help me. That could not give me hope. That could not give me strength to fight what I needed to fight. An invisible fight that was extremely debilitating, that put me into bed for almost 2 years. And what I've learned is that there's a lot of things that go on in our bodies that actually we can start to control with our minds. So I got a lot of information from science, from the science that we know. So WebMD or CDC or the World Health Organization. So I'm trying to be as factual as possible in terms how our minds can help balance our bodies. So our mental and physical health are equally important. So we can feel that because when we have a high level of stress, for example, we can feel some type of discomfort in our tummy. We may have like a heartburn. We can feel our heart beating very fast. We can feel like short breath. Some people may have a seizure or a heart attack. So our emotions, our minds can have a direct impact in what goes on into our bodies. And what science has been concluding is that a lot of those health problems, like long-lasting conditions like diabetes, heart disease, and stroke, are connected to the mind. So if we do not learn how to manage and how to well control what we think, how we feel, we can become sick. We can suffer more. So as CDC defines mental health, it includes emotional, psychological, and social well-being. Wow, that's a mouthful. That's really a mouthful. Because if we think in terms of the breath or something like that, so our emotions basically are all the feelings that basically wrap how we think or what we think. Our psychological side brings back all the baggage, all the weight that we have had through tens of years. The social well-being means how we nurture ourselves. How do we deal with our everyday stresses? How do we talk to each other? How we are able to handle any type of distress on our everyday life? So it affects how we think, how we feel, and how we act. I will repeat that. So our emotional, psychological, and social well-being will affect how we think, how we feel, and how we act. It also helps determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and make healthy choices. What are those healthy choices? What are we talking about? Because this seems to be pretty holistic, right? Certainly, mental health is more than just going to a therapy. or just taking like a magic pill. It's much more than that. Mental health is basically helping, it's calling us to make healthy choices, to look at our lives much more than what we do for living or how we gain the money to pay the bills. It's much more than that. It's how we relate to each other, is whether we exercise or not, how we nurture our body, meaning emotionally, but with food, but also spiritually. Mental health is important at every stage of life, from childhood to adolescence through adulthood. And as we saw from Gabor Mate, a lot of the traumas that we may carry when we were kids, and the trauma, as he says, is not exactly what happened. The trauma is not about what happened. The trauma is about how I dealt with that situation. And that's kind of a connects back to what CDC is saying, with how we relate to the situations of stress of our lives. The same situation, like a cancer or a divorce or a loss of a child, which are extremely difficult for anyone, can be handled in a very different way from different people. And even if we are talking about siblings. So it's not a matter of, oh, they came from a different family, they didn't have, loving parents, or no. It's something that is within us. It's our responsibility to own our mental health and make the decisions that are better for us. So I listed 3 factors that can contribute to risk of mental health. And I put on the top right the suicide and crisis lifeline, because this is important. The biggest gift, the largest treasure that we have as human beings, as Spiritism says, is our life. That's the biggest blessing. And then if we are facing a moment that we feel so empty inside, so hopeless, that we think it's not worth it, we need to ask for help. We need to go and look for help immediately. Because spirituality, as well as spiritism, tells us that life continues after the death of our bodies. So there's no solution by running away from our problems. That's not going to help us in any shape or form. So the first thing that I want to talk about is this feeling of feeling hopeless. That's loneliness and isolation that can pull us out of life and avoid being around people who loves us. Data has demonstrated that when people are feeling lonely or loneliness, there is a bigger chance of suicide thoughts. Feeling hopeless is one of the clinical factors of depression. So if in this moment you feel like you don't have any hope, you need to look for help. And the fact that we are talking about spirituality and spiritism doesn't mean that we should not look for help from our science. So look for a doctor, look for a therapist, a psychotherapist, and ask for help. There are many reasons why people feel depression. There's many reasons why people feel hopeless. And in no moment I'm saying that that's not valid. And that's why we need to face it and ask for help. The second point that I want to talk about is the imposter syndrome. And this usually happens when we come from a family that is very strict. That family that is loving, it can be loving or not, but you're always pushed to do more, to do better, to be perfect. So there is this hidden trauma inside of us that we never meet the standard, the expected standard, no matter where we are. In this case, that can cause some ongoing chronic medical conditions. The imposter syndrome is a condition of feeling anxious and not experience success internally, despite of the high performing results. So it's not objective. People with this condition may feel like a fraud or phony and doubting their abilities. They feel like success is impossible. And by that, I don't mean only professionally, I mean in different areas. So no matter what I do, I may have the Superman cape, but I feel like I'm never good enough. And people with imposter syndrome feel like they're always afraid of not meeting expectations of others. And the third point that I want to cover here as a factor, a risk factor, is when we lose connection to ourselves. And this is probably the most important one, because life poses so many things, so many distractions. We have never had in our lives an ability to search, to know, to have as we have right now. Technology has opened all the doors and windows so we can have information about what's going on the coup in Russia right now, or what they are doing in China, as well as what's going on in Portland. And with that amount of information, looking so much outside, we may forget to look inside. And when we forget to look inside, we do not pay attention to our peers, to our pain, to our needs. And we start looking for answers in the wrong place. We may look for answers into any type of addiction. So, it's 5 o'clock somewhere in the world, so let's have wine. Or maybe it's not even 5 o'clock. We may look for some type of use of drugs, which in the past were illegal and now legal in many, many states. And we use those drugs, illicit, illegal or not, to numb ourselves, to numb how we're feeling. So it gets easier to deal with the stress, with failure, with frustration, with unhappiness. Another thing that's going on today, as we lose connection to ourselves, as we know, is just open social media. We open social media and we have an impression that everybody's happy but us. Everybody has everything but us. Everybody's able to go to fun places but us. What's wrong with me? Why my life is not as glamorous, as fun? Because that's not reality. And then what we do is that we adapt our personality to feel loved. And suddenly having a like in our Instagram becomes survival mode. Like, if that's really relevant, if someone that doesn't even know me likes what I wrote or not, or my clothes, or my new hairdo, or what I said, or needs to know what I'm eating. So when we mix what is really important with what people tells us that is important, we have disconnection, rupture with ourselves. And that comes with a very strong result from CDC. More than 1 in 5 US adults live with mental illness. I don't know if you know that, but during COVID, 40% of the US population had mental illness. 40%. By 2030, 1 in every 2 adults in the US will be obese. Over 1 in 5 youth over 13 to 18, either currently or at some point of their life, have had serious debilitating mental illness. I don't know about you guys, but my kids go to a good school. And I hear some terrible things. I hear about kids trying to commit suicide. I hear about kids harming themselves. I hear about kids dealing drugs. So why? Because there's something missing. There's something broken inside that today the teenagers don't know how to resolve, and they need help. So as parents, our responsibility is to step up and do something. We learn from Emmanuel that family is the cell, the very smallest point of the society. That when the family is broken, the society is broken. So even though we know that today family relations, marriage are not as cool or many times as relevant as it was before, when the family relations are broken, the kids suffer, the society suffers. Suicide is the second most common type of death among young people between 15 and 24 years. So suicide kills more than car accidents. Suicide kills more than car accidents. Remember that we are not talking about kids who try to commit suicide but are not successful. And when we go to LGBTQ plus kids or adults, this data is even sadder. These feelings were found to be more common among those type of kids, LGBTQ plus students, female students, and students across racial and ethnic groups. Nearly half, 45% of LGBTQ plus students in 2021 seriously considered attempting suicide for more than heterosexual students. Black students were more likely to attempt suicide than students of other races and ethnicity. So that means that probably a kid that is hanging out with your kid, or maybe our kid, may be thinking about suicide. This data kind of bring us to focus on a level of stress that our youth is going through and experience probably in silence, because it's hard to talk about how we feel. It's hard to talk about our problems, and anyone who have read Brené Brown's book knows that vulnerability is hard. Showing up is hard. And for them, showing their weaknesses is not seen as courage, quite the opposite. And we need to help them. And I think that that's another thing about our symposium in September, because there is a youth area where not spiritism, but religiousness is important. It's an important critical seed to plant into our kids' hearts. So why this is a big deal? Poor mental health in teens is more than feeling blue. It's beyond just struggling with grades. We see our kids kind of being locked in at home, looking at screens, playing computer games, maybe on Discord, And we know that, we just saw today on the news that Discord had been facing a lot of predators online. So we don't know with whom they are talking. Behaviors and habits have established in adolescence. So we know that a lot of the addictions that we may face as adults started when we were 12, 13, 14. When I was living in London, and this was about 10 years ago, I remember seeing an ad on the buses over there that were really shocking. They were going through a campaign to reduce the amount of drinking in adults and kids. So for the adults, there was one big ad that would basically say, if you drink today, do not drive tomorrow. I will repeat, it's not, if you don't drink today, don't drive today. No, if you drink today, don't drive tomorrow. And for the kids is, don't give alcohol to your kid between 5 and 13 years old. 5 and 13, when we know that the age is 21. And what we are trying to bring here, and probably the attention that they were trying to call each one of us, is exactly that this addiction can start very early and can spread into our lives and damage our lives much more than we can imagine. Mental health problems are linked to behavioral risks. So when I am feeling lonely, empty, frustrated, I may go for illegal drugs to numb myself. Maybe the trauma came from my family, came from outside. But that will somehow generate some type of violence to myself or to others. And in case of our adolescents, it may cause even unintended pregnancy. So taking care of our mental health, looking at our kids, helping them, making good decisions, creating healthy habits that can carry on through the years is very important. So they can grow up as adults with a stable mental health. So how can we cultivate mental health? Well, as we've been talking so far, it's very holistic. So we may look at as a combo. So we need to take care of our physical body, and we need to take care of our mind and our spirit. And interesting enough is that I have a professor, which is one of the most famous Ayurvedic doctors. There's even a movie about him. His name is Vasant Lad. And in Ayurveda, he combines not only mind and body, but he combines mind, body, and spirit. And we need to look for a support system. So for the body is the doctor. For the mind, for example, a psychiatrist, a therapist, a counselor. For the spirit, we need to look for this connection between us and God. We need to learn to practice self-compassion. We need to look at what are the painful experiences that have affected our lives and how we can translate that into an opportunity for growth. We need to find our purpose. And by purpose, I mean looking at situations, areas that can fulfill a higher purpose, a higher need. If we start to cultivate better relationships with ourselves and others, if we look for some type of community that brings us good feelings, that make us better people, If we look at our experiences in life, like the contact with nature, like reading good books, listening to good music, meaning calm music, we will be cultivating mental health. We will be nurturing our body. Dr. Diaz da Cruz was a medical doctor from Rio de Janeiro. He was also one of the presidents of Federação Espírita Brasileira back in the 1900s. And he says that on many occasions, our conduct can be our illness as much as our behavior can represent our restoration and our healing. It's very hard to separate the illness to the ill. Actually, as we were talking about, many times our illnesses come from how we think, how we behave. So if we want to restore our health, we will need to basically restore and heal ourselves. We need to work on how to become better, more centered, more patient, more calm. And with that, there's no sickness, but sick people. Remembering, as we said, that if we reframe our experiences, if we use the beginner's mind, like looking at everything with curiosity as an opportunity for growth, we will learn something about every single experience. That doesn't mean that we like. It's different than liking. But there's a difference between happiness and pleasure. And many times we choose pleasure rather than happiness. So the pleasure is to drink, for example, a bottle of wine. So that's immediate reward. And I know myself. But happiness, because I have a liver problem, I should not drink wine. And many times we choose to drink wine even though we know that we have a liver problem, because we are looking for the immediate pleasure instead of the ongoing happiness. So our mind rules. We need to set a discipline. We need to set for us, not for others, for us, because commanding our own body is already hard enough. The limits. And look for solutions that are good for us from a body, mind, and spirit perspective. The second thing is to practice gratitude and love to us and to others, and pay it forward. And that's contagious. Every time we do something to others that is good, we feel good. And that may inspire others to do good things as well. Spread positivity. Nobody likes a grumpy person. Nobody likes someone that is always complaining and just saying unhappy things and having unhappy thoughts. When we bring optimism to our lives, we transform our vibration. We feel better. We use more muscles in our face to be grumpy than to smile. It's easier to smile, even if it's a fake smile. And interesting enough, science has shown that if we start faking a smile in front of the mirror, it will help us feel better. As we smile to others, maybe that person didn't receive one smile in a day. And that kind of happened with me the other day in the supermarket, that I was about to get in line and there was an older gentleman just about to get in line. And then I told him to go first and I smiled at him. And he looked at me and said, "This is the first smile that I get." So we don't know what people are going through. We don't know their lives. They may look pretty tidy from the outside, but that doesn't mean that they are not broken inside. So in the book, Missionaries of Light, the chapter 5, this book is very important and talks about mediumship and the power of mind, not only from the mediums, but from everyone. It says that each mind is a veritable world of emission and reception, and each one attracts what resembles it. The sad please the sad. The ignorant gather together. Criminals share in the same sphere. The good establish reciprocal bonds in the same sphere. So what he's saying here is that if our mind is like an engine that all the time is receiving input and giving output, and that whatever vibration we are, and think about vibration like radio waves or your Wi-Fi network, whatever vibration we are connecting with all the beings, incarnated and disincarnated, that are feeling the same thing. And for those who do not know, if we count the amount of incarnated and disincarnated spirits around planet Earth, we have about 21 billion. So for every one person incarnated, there are about 2 disincarnated. And when I turn on my Wi-Fi network into sadness, I am connecting with the same type of minds all over. And that's why when I get sad, it's harder to get better. And then I get sadder, it's harder until I hit rock bottom. So it's easier to control from the beginning, to pay attention. Okay, so what I am feeling right now, is this mine or is this from another spirit? And I'm saying that because on the Spirit's book, on question 459, Allan Kardec asks, so the thoughts that we have, are they from us or from others, from spirits? And the answer that the spirits give to Allan Kardec is that we are influenced by the spirits much more than we can think. So it's important to take ownership, to control what we are thinking, paying attention to our thoughts, because our thoughts will control our minds. In the book In the Greater World from André Luiz, and I am a big fan of André Luiz, I think that the more that we study their books, the more we see. I've read their books more than once, and every time that I read and I teach each one of the books, I realize that I learned something different. So they are very rich in terms of content that sometimes we are not really ready to observe. So in the Greater World, André Luiz explains the causes of mental health challenges and explains on chapter 3, our mind. And he explains that our mind can be compared to a castle with 3 floors. That's our brain. That on the top floor is basically our connection to the superior spirits. In the middle floor, that's our will, our ability to make decisions. That's the present, that's the today. And in the bottom part of the brain, that's our subconscious. Our subconscious is bringing back memories, vices, experiences from previous lives, our instincts. And if we look back to humankind, we'll see that history shows that we have done many wrongs. And these wrongs were done not by them, were done by us too. So this is all in this little compartment. But every day, in every single action we have, we are able to choose from each one of these 3 floors how we want to act instead of react. Because if we try to react, we will always go to the basement, to all these old vices, the repetitive behaviors that we have brought from the past millennia, maybe. But we have our ability in the middle floor to control our will, to put our knowledge in place, to use our free will to make the right decisions and be inspired by the top floor, by the celestial beings, to make better decisions into our lives, to think better, to feel better. Our brain is divided into 3 distinct regions. Let's take if there's a 3-story castle, as I explained. On the first, we place the residence of our automatic impulses. That's the basement, symbolizing the living summary of the services performed. In the second, the middle, we locate the domicile of current conquests, where the noble qualities that we are building are built and consolidated. In the third, we have the house of the super notions, indicating the eminences that we must reach. So habit and automatism lives in one of them. So we need to pay attention. We possess in ourselves the past, the present, and the future, and we may choose which direction to take. Master Eckhart was a theologist from the 14th century, and he says that the human being has so many skins inside that covers the depth of their heart. And we know so many things, but we don't know ourselves. Why 30 or 40 skins or hides as thick as hard as an ox or bear's cover the soul? Go into your own ground and learn to know yourself there. This was written in the 14th century, and he was not aware of what's going today. He was not aware of Facebook or Instagram. He didn't know that we would have the fake images of who we are to be liked and forget to pay attention to who we really is. So we need to look inside of us and say, okay, what type of personas I'm trying to live in? Who I'm trying to be? So we learned from Allan Kardec on the question 919 that the most effective and practical way to improve ourselves has been taught by a philosopher in ancient Greece, which is know yourself. But how do we know ourselves? We know ourselves by doing a daily reflection of who we are, what we have done, good and bad. If we have helped or hurt anyone, if we have something that people can complain with us that we need to fix. This way we can analyze what we are doing every day. And it may take just a few minutes before we before we fall asleep, before our prayers at night. Just kind of looking at ourselves in the mirror, but with no witness, just us and God. So why spirituality matters? And according to science, and I wanted to have some data to basically back me up here. According to science, and this is from WebMD, it helps us make sense of our experiences in life. So we have a sense of purpose, peace, hope, meaning. When we are feeling there's so much distress right now, if we know that this shall pass too, we encounter peace. When unwell, spirituality can help us find inner strength. So we can have confidence in ourselves, confidence that we are not alone, confidence that there is a God that oversees the big picture that is taking care of us. Spirituality builds a sense of community and support. We create relationships. We create relationships in the Spirit Center. Good relationships, people that are trying to become better people every day, not perfect people. And these relationships help us become better and happier. We start being more critical in terms of our friendships. And maybe those friends who we used to hang out before that will drink too much or use too much drugs or say too gossiping, that do not fit into who we like to hang out anymore. So when we talk about purpose and meaning, it has a lot to do with the stories we tell. There is a writer called Byron Katie, and she's a bestseller writer, and she has a method called the work. And with the work, she created 4 questions that we have to use. One is the story that we're telling. Is it true? Is it real? Because many times we tell us stories that are not real. So someone is not talking to me, and then the story that I may have is that person doesn't like me. This question can really change your life. The second question is, again, is it really true? How do you know it's true? And usually by the second question, you already know that you're kind of making things up. The third is that, how do you react to what happens when you believe into that thought? What's my reaction when I believe that someone is not talking to me because she doesn't like me? I get angry, I get frustrated. And the fourth question is that, who would you be without that thought? And with those 4 simple questions, we can reframe the stories that we are telling us. The second point here is to simplify our lives and refocus to what matters. What I mean is that sometimes we are always in this rat race. And I came from the Bay Area. Don't get me wrong. When I moved from Brazil to the United States, yeah, I was driven by ambition, career growth. Yes, I invested a lot in my career. And then suddenly, when enough is enough, what is really important? When we die, nobody's going to ask you about your title, the brand of your car, the size of your home. They're going to ask you, how many people did you make smile? How did you treat your kids? What did you do with your life? What is your heritage? Morally, not monetarily. The third point is focus on what we can control. And many times we kind of get lost into that, because I'm thinking either in wrongs that I did in the past or what may happen in the future. And I forget that the only thing that I can control is the present. The only thing that I can control today is my daily choice. I cannot change the past. I do not control the future. No matter what I do, how much I try. So how do we expand the toolbox? Spiritism can help. The toolbox that will help us take care of our body and our needs. And I try to bucketize in 3 areas. One is coping strategies. So Spiritism can help us deal better with our daily life's challenges. It can help us make more balanced, resilient, give us strength. Prayer and meditation is a great tool to connect to our higher self and to God. And the third bucket is about love and charity, because it feels good to do good. When we help others, we forget our needs, our pain. So the coping strategies, as we were talking about, in Peter 1, chapter 5, verse 7, says, cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. And then Emmanuel kind of goes back into daily bread on chapter 8 and says, place your concerns and disquieting fears in the hopes you have in the celestial Father, because he cares, because the divine love desires the well-being of all of us. So what Emmanuel is trying to say to us is that we are never alone, that there is a God that is a Father, a loving Father, a perfect Father that is taking care of us. And some of the ways that we can see that is just looking, observing the nature. We see 4 seasons. When we are in the middle of the winter, we think that everything is dead, and then suddenly springs opens up and we see the flowers, the birds. So the same thing happens when we are facing anxiety, suffering. That will unfold into better times because we are here to learn. We have a Heavenly Father that wants us to be happy, that wants us to grow, to become better. We should not forget this prescription from Peter to ask for help, to put our pain, our frustrations, our fears into God's hands, because it will unload ourselves. Prayer meditation. And I choose Matthew chapter 7, verse 7. Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. So the power of prayer, and we have seen scientists studying prayer and noticing that we can get more strength when we pray. We should not be asking for material things. And usually when we are praying, we always asking, and we forget that prayer usually has three folds. One is to honor, the second is to thank God, and the third is to request. When we are requesting things, remember to request for courage, for patience, for energy, for love, for health. God knows our needs, but He waits for us to ask. He wants us to ask. The second aspect that I want to see is gospel at home. And the first book that Divaldo worked with Joana de Angelis was Messe de Amor, which is the home of love. And Joana de Angelis explains to us that when we pray at home, the gospel at home, we basically enlight not only our house, but the whole building, maybe the whole community. And we heal our home. It's like a hygiene for a home. We change the vibration of our home. We bring peace to our home. The third aspect that I want to talk about is meditation, reminding ourselves that our mind controls our body. And when we meditate, we basically try to clear our mind, to center ourselves. And this is proven to treat depression and anxiety. It is proven to increase concentration. And it's hard to meditate. It's a practice. There's no end. But the idea is that 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day can make you 10% happier, as we know. And the book Missionaries of Light talks about prayer on chapter 5, says that prayer, elevated meditation, uplifting thought, transform the atmosphere, purifying it. Elevated thoughts sanctifies the surrounding atmosphere and has properties that human being is far from imagining. Our thoughts are like invocations. Our thoughts are like invocations, as our thoughts work as magnets to our desires and will. So we will find what we look for, good or bad, because our thoughts are like invocations, are like magnets. The third bucket, love and charity, which is do to others what want others to do to you. Charity is contagious. There was a research done by UCSD and Harvard showing that giving is contagious, that when we give, not only we have this immediate the feeling better, and be giving, I'm not saying just giving material things, but we also inspire others to pay forward. So we can be a change agent into our society, into our group. Another study from Claremont Graduate University shows that giving has been linked to release oxytocin, a hormone that induces feelings of warmth, euphoria, and connection to others. So the idea is that doing good, charity, gives you a high. So things to remember here. If you are feeling hopeless, if you are feeling lonely, if you're feeling like things are just not working out and you are not strong enough, look for help. And by that, I mean body, mind, and spirit. Look for help. Be accountable for your well-being. Is not your partner's responsibility, is not your kid's responsibility, your parents' responsibility. We need to be the CEO of our lives. We need to own our lives. Don't let the green grass distract you. Don't think life is based on Instagram, Facebook. Disconnect from that and connect with real good people. Build a community that will make you feel better, feel loved, feel respected. And the fourth thing is be compassionate with you and with yourself, with others. We need to love ourselves. We need to love others. And I want to wrap up with this Lao Tzu saying that watch your thoughts, they become your words. Watch your words, they become your actions. Watch your actions, they become your habits. Watch your habits, they become your character. Watch your character, because it becomes your destiny. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for such great reflections. I really, I did learn a lot. I really gave me. I'm pretty sure I gave to everybody else lots of food for thought. We have some questions now, and actually, I have an interesting comment here from Julia Makita. She says, "I'm broken inside." So that was her comment. So how would you respond to whenever we hear a comment like that?
I'm sorry, Julia. I'm sorry that you're feeling like that. And I would say that we are never alone. And if there's one thing that we can do is heal ourselves. So look for help. There are a lot of books of self-help in spiritism that can bring you hope. The Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 6, which is the name is the Consoler. For me, every time that I feel like I have no strength, that I don't know where to go, that all the experience in life seem to be too much for me, I open chapter 6 of the Gospel according to Spiritism and I read out loud. And I would say that it's a short chapter, probably the shortest in the book. And when I finish that chapter, I have to say that I feel like my energies are renewed. But Julia, look for help. Look for medical help, psychological help if you can. Look for our spirit center in your city. There is PASSIS, which is basically when we give energy with our hands. And I'm sure that you're going to start feeling better. And I'm sending you a virtual hug from here, hoping that you feel better.
Thank you, Anna. A question from Jusara Carngold. The imposter feeling can be even well disguised in our persona, right?
I would say so. The imposter syndrome comes from some type of trauma when we have these very high standards from our families and kind of opposes us to be perfect all the time. And that may kind of probably flip the coin that we may have really heavy hands and become perfectionists with others and with ourselves, kind of causing suffering at a different level and a stress and distress for a different level as well.
Excellent. Thank you. So a question from the United States Spiritist Federation: how to leverage the convenience of living in a connected world while avoiding the risks of depression?
I think that living in a connected world is a blessing. Without that connection, we will not be able to outreach so many people and connect with great speakers and learn so much. On the other hand, real life connections, meaning hanging out with people that make you good, feel good. There is this exchange of energies that can heal a lot. One of the risks of depression is mostly when we center our lives into ourselves and we isolate ourselves from real people. And sometimes the depression comes when we isolate ourselves from people who love us. So we just shut the door. So it's important to have a balance, to have both sides into our lives. So make our choices, not too much in one side and not too much on the other side.
Okay. Thank you. So Daniel Santos has a question. How can we educate our children in today's polarized world when social media is a stronger force in our society?
It's very hard. It's very hard, Daniela, and I feel that every day. And I have to say that many times what I tell my kids is that the same way that I will not let them eat hot dogs for lunch and dinner and breakfast every day, I will not let them have social media for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day. So we as parents, we need to be the enforcement law inside our families, teaching them how to create discipline and moderation in everything that they do. I understand that social media many times is the way that they connect to their friends, and isolating them from these friendships may not be good for them either. But we need a balance. So the same way that we need to have vegetables and fruits and proteins and grains into our everyday meal, they need to have that from a mental perspective. So it's not only social media. What else?
So, still going back to having a balance, right? Having a balanced life and helping our children live a balanced life. Cool.
And remember that the habits that they create right now will carry into their adulthood. So if they do not know how to put limits into their choices, they will not be able to do that as adults as well. We in life, we learn the hard way to get no's. We all get no's. So it's important for us as parents to tell them no's and put limits too.
Excellent. Thank you. Very good. So Yasko Arakawa has a question. Hi, Anna. Great topic. The first generation of our families coming to the new world, say those living in the last 1 or 2 centuries, mostly immigrants, low-class workers, they suffered of lots of uncertainty, lack of knowledge, and no control of many situations. Did resilience play a role in their survival? How about more realistic expectations and thereby less frustration? Thanks.
Yes, I love that. There is a saying I think it's an Arabic saying that strong parents make weak children. No, let me go back. Hard times make strong parents. Strong parents makes weak children. Weak children make hard times. And then hard times bring strong parents. So I think that resilience has a lot to do with the way they survived. And I would say that my grandparent came to Brazil with a banana. And I think that he had like $10. So it was in the middle of the Spanish flu. And it was a desperation, total desperation. And he came to Brazil at the age of 13, alone. And I can't imagine, I have a 14-year-old. I can't imagine his mother, the suffering and the desperation of this woman to send her child to a new world, to meet someone so he would not die of the Spanish flu. And he had a hard life, a pretty hard life, worked like hell. And then luckily, I would say that God takes care of us because he was there working at the harbor. And one man, a good soul, basically saw that young man basically sleeping there and working to make to be working for food, and he says he decided to help and give him a job, and that's how it all started. So I think that resilience plays a big role too, but I would not say that resilience and mental health are opposites. The fact that we are resilient doesn't make that we do not need support. Many times we are very good in putting under the rug our sufferings and frustrations and everything. And again, as Gabor Mate says, that the trauma is not about the trauma, it's how we deal with it. So the experience for my ancestors might be very different, varying from person to person, and how they deal with it. What type of person did they become? There is a comparison that I like to make, that, 3 types of people. So like a carrot person, which is very hard, and we put into boiling water and become soft. The second type of person is an egg that is very hard from inside. Or, if you open the egg, it's very soft, right? But if we put in the boiling water, it becomes hard. And the third type of person is a stone that we put into boiling water and it stays the same. So I don't think we can basically put everybody in the same bucket. Each one of us will deal with that experience and have resilience put in a different way inside them.
Interesting. Thank you for clarifying that. We have one last question for you. How to impact, and that's from the U.S. Spiritist Federation, how to impact the sick attitude of others in a positive way?
So as we were talking before, they're not sick people, they're not illnesses, they're ill people, right? So if we are seeing someone that needs help, I think that the first thing that we can use is compassion and no judgment, which is very hard, but that's what we saw from Jesus. He didn't judge even his apostles, 12 of them that were very imperfect and sick. Each one of them had their traumas and limitations. Nevertheless, he gave opportunity and showed by example what was the right. The second thing that I would suggest is praying, because praying should be our first resource, never the last one. By praying, we connect with this unimaginable power of wisdom and energy and goodness that can basically help us heal and help heal others. And when we pray for other people, that is charity, actually. We are doing good. We don't need to tell them. This is something between us and God. But we may rest assured that all the prayers that are done with our hearts, with deep sentiment, will help the one who is receiving.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Just as a reminder, and Anna, thank you for such a great explanation, such very interesting, very thoughtful lecture.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure always. So do you have any final words, any final comments? Also, if you have any particular projects that you're working on that you'd like to share with the larger audience, would you care to share with us, or any final comments?
No, I would like to invite everyone to come to Portland, to beautiful Portland, a city that we loved, and all this green, lush nature. And I'm sure that you guys are going to have a great time and learn a lot, and not only how to heal ourselves, but also help others in need. And the sense of community is very important. This exchange of love and being in the same place with a like mind, it's a growth opportunity for everyone. So that's my invitation for everyone.
Yeah, Spiritual Path to Mental Balance, 17th Spiritist Symposium, Portland, September 30th to 2023. Also, as a reminder, we will continue. There are going to be some great lectures like the one we had today in the future. So stay tuned on our channel, on the U.S. Spiritist Federation channel on YouTube, and also on the Facebook page. And finally, Anna, would you care to say the final prayer for us?
Yes. So let's take a deep breath in and out, sitting comfortably in our chairs, opening our hands face up, opening our hearts, elevating our thoughts to our Almighty God, thanking for the opportunity of being here this morning, opening our weekend with love, with peace, with joy. We pray today, dear God, asking for a whole planet with such disturbance and pain. May you help and heal each heart that needs help, each person that feels broken, each soul that looks for the light. Help each one of us on our search for ourselves, for our growth. Help us be the servers of your love, no matter where we are. Protect our families. Protect those in need. Thank you for this day. Thank you for life.